Residential areas in the Libyan capital targeted by indiscriminate shelling. The UN-backed government says forces loyal to the warlord Khalifa Haftar are attacking the city in reaction to their defeat in the west of the country. People in the coastal city of Sabratha cheering the liberation of the city by the government forces. Other nearby cities, including Sarman and Jilat, have been also recaptured by the government forces. Haftar's forces, who controlled those cities for the past 3 years, were driven out in 24 hours after heavy fighting. The swift takeover of those cities sees government forces changing their strategy from defensive to offensive mood.
The coronavirus pandemic continues to spread rapidly across continents. The deadly virus, which has infected more than 1.8 million people worldwide so far, is also negatively impacting the global economy. In an attempt to help poor economies, the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, has approved immediate debt relief to 25 poor member nations to fight the impact of COVID-19. However, Pakistan's request for the same has not been approved. Pakistan, which has recorded more than 5,000 cases, is reeling under pressure. A few days ago, Prime Minister Imran Khan had also appealed to the IMF for urgent debt relief measures as the pandemic has brought the South Asian country's economy to a halt. As of now, Pakistan is in a debt of $100 billion from its foreign lenders.
Security forces are making sure people follow lockdown orders in the capital, Kigali. Anyone who doesn't can be arrested and fined. Those with valid reasons, such as visiting a hospital and market runs for food, have their temperatures checked before being allowed to proceed. At the start of the lockdown, police shot dead 2 people. They said the men attacked a police officer. Soldiers have also been accused by several slum dwellers of human rights abuses, including rape. The Rwandan military says it's investigating and has arrested some soldiers. Security forces in several other countries on the continent, such as Kenya, South Africa and Uganda, have also been accused by human rights groups of using excessive force on civilians.
The number of new coronavirus cases in Italy, meanwhile, declined, but the death toll continues to rise. The number of COVID-19 fatalities in Italy rose to 566, up from 431 the previous day. The overall death toll is now over 20,465. Meanwhile, neighboring France has extended its lockdown till the 11th of May for a month. This as President Emmanuel Macron warned that the pandemic was not yet under control. This comes as the death toll in France neared 15,000. Rafale jets, which were aboard a COVID-19 stricken aircraft carrier, have returned to their base in northwest France. Personnel who operated those jets were tested before being quarantined at a military facility.
Markets in Bujumbura, the commercial capital of Burundi, are teeming with customers, even as the rest of the continent shuts down.
People here believe their religious faith will protect them from getting infected with coronavirus. More than 2/3 of the population identify as Catholic, and the church wields strong influence over both the government and the people. On Easter Sunday, churches were filled with people praying for the end of the pandemic while the rest of the world celebrated in isolation. There's been no official ban on public gatherings or any other broad measures to prevent the disease from spreading, unlike in neighboring Rwanda and the DRC, where strict lockdown rules are being implemented. Instead, authorities have allowed the football season to carry on as usual,
There are 3 vaccines that have been given the approval for clinical trials. The adenovirus vector vaccine was the first one to be entering into the clinical trial, and the phase 1 clinical trial was initiated in March, and then on April the 12th, the Sinovac jointly applied for the inactivated vaccine, and the approval was given on that day. And yesterday, the Sinovac application for the inactivated vaccine candidate was also given the approval.
Detectives have paid a visit to George Pell's new Sydney home as fresh child sexual abuse accusations emerged today. Police say it was a pre-arranged meeting concerning the Cardinal's security.
George Pell must have thought his days dealing with police were over, but this afternoon a visit at his Homebush sanctuary.
You're from the police? Yeah, from Auburn, yeah.
Greeted by security, 7 officers made their way into the Good Shepherd Seminary. The meeting lasted less than 10 minutes. Police say they were not there in an investigative capacity. Exactly 1 week after George Pell was acquitted of all charges by the High Court, a fresh police investigation is believed to be underway. News Corp is reporting that the new child abuse allegations against George Pell have been made by a man who works in a professional role.
Emergency doctors have been airlifted into the Tasmanian town of Burnie after its 2 hospitals were quarantined. And the chief medical officer was forced to backtrack after he accused health workers of spreading the virus by attending an illegal dinner party. Mark Burrows has more.
The Air Force to the rescue. 2 Hercules carrying an AUSMAT team, doctors and nurses, flying into Burnie, northwest Tassie, after a COVID-19 outbreak forced the shutdown of its 2 hospitals. The aim is to set up a makeshift emergency department. Of the new outbreak, 45 are medical workers and at least 9 are patients.
Lashed by rain, battered by gale force winds, the COVID-19 field hospital in New York Central Park is taking a beating today. The rain has been coming down here all day long, but the biggest concern is the wind, with gusts up to 70 miles per hour. For the patients inside those tents and the brave medical personnel taking care of them, this storm is the last thing they need. Despite the brutal weather, the news from New York, the epicenter of the pandemic, is hopeful today.
And I believe the worst is over if we continue to be smart. And I believe we can now start on the path to normalcy.
We're seeing disturbing images on the streets of Manhattan. Hundreds lining up at soup kitchens, and the homeless taking over car after car in the city's vast subway system.
Captain Tom Moore has raised more than £1 million for NHS charities. The World War II hero wanted to help the NHS cope with the coronavirus pandemic by walking 100 lengths of his back garden before he turned 100 on April the 30th. The 99-year-old veteran walked 10 laps of his garden, which is 25 metres in length, every day to reach his goal. He was initially aiming to raise £500,000, but today's total exceeded £1 million.
Let's bring it back home now, where chaos in Mitchell's Plain, burning tyres and cops being pelted with stones. This by angry residents who have not received food parcels promised to them.
Well, some of the social development staff members just explained to me that the parcels, the food parcels that were handed over or handed out this morning had nothing to do with the promises made by President Cyril Ramaphosa. She was telling me she didn't want to go on camera or be named, but she wanted to give me context to say that they deal with early childhood. And these food parcels were meant for children and not meant for the broader community. So they handed out these food parcels this morning, and the people standing here behind me and standing over there, as you can see, they were standing there and they saying that they had called a toll-free number and they were promised by the president that they would be given food parcels.